Yeah, the broad benefits are really incredible, and how complementary it is with the patches, with everything else. I know everyone's going to want to be taking all of the products, should be taking, all of the products. As I was watching the chat, as you were talking, lots of excitement. Everybody wants it yesterday. There were a couple questions. There were a couple questions around dosage and storing. So you mentioned that in the studies, it's shown, impact and benefits within seconds. But as someone is looking at, a week, a month, a year, what do you feel the right consumption and dosage of the water is? And do you lose any benefits if you do end up, filtering and then maybe storing the water in the refrigerator for a little while?
So there's a few questions there. So the first thing is, during the studies, we only have people drinking 1 glass of water per day. We don't know what the optimum dose will be, but we see incredible benefits just to 1 glass. So it could be that people don't need to drink any more than 1 glass per day. The other thing is, we have to remember that this will greatly depend on nutrition. So we want to encourage people to have a healthy diet. I saw a comment, how much protein is adequate? And this really depends on a person's objectives. So I'll use a practical example. Let's say when I turned 55, I was training like a competitive athlete. It was just something I wanted to do. So I was in the gym 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I went from being about 185, 190 pounds to 217 pounds at my peak. So I was consuming 200 grams of protein per day. And that was 40 grams of protein 5 times per day. But that was my goal. I wanted to build as much muscle strength and stamina as possible. But generally speaking, the reason for having protein in 40-gram doses is because we need enough of the branched chain amino acids to turn on mTOR. And specifically, it's leucine is the one key amino acid. So we'd want to have somewhere between 3 to 4 grams of leucine, depending on age, to turn on mTOR. So let's say if it's a high quality protein like whey protein, which is high in leucine, then 40 grams. It appears to be a good amount. And then, so I would say for a woman that was maybe 120 pounds, 120 grams of protein per day will allow for gain in muscle and strength. But if the goal is to maintain, then maybe 80 to 100 grams is fine. And then the same type of logic for men. It's all kind of relative. So if we go back and we look at how much water should somebody drink per day, well, if you've got a terrible diet, then maybe 1 glass isn't going to help you very much because you don't have the vitamins and nutrition that you really need. The first thing is, let's clean up your diet, eat organic food, stop eating processed foods, supplement where necessary. I would still go back and say it's the same rule that we talk about with the patches. Have a clean diet, get your proper nutrition, supplement where you need to, make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're getting exercise, and then using the patches, using the water, using our nutritional supplements, you're going to get the best results.
Incredible. And what about storage? Are you able to filter and refrigerate and drink 3 hours later? What's the optimal timing to take the product?
Well, the great news is that the machine does it all. So if someone wants to put tap water into our machine, it's got 2 separate levels of filtration. Now, we spent 8 or 9 months just on the primary filter because we needed to make sure that this was a high-end filter. We wanted to take out microplastics. We wanted to take out the forever chemicals, and then all the usual things like pharmaceuticals, chlorine, heavy metals. The first stage of the water machine is going to do all of that. And then the second filtration stage is a carbon block, and it adds hydrogen into the water. So the machine process will have oxygen in the water, then we add hydrogen. The light panels inside the black box is what will process the hydrogen and oxygen essentially into a new stage of water. The shelf life, what we found, we tried up to about 5 hours. And essentially the way that we do this, not to be boring, but we look for, we test phase changes of the water, and we look at water structures before and after. But essentially we found about 4 to 5 hours after the water is processed, it will stay stable. It may stay stable longer than that, but keep in mind, because it's processed with light, you want to keep, we do this all in complete darkness and away from any extraneous energy like, anyway, ambient light. You want to keep it away from ambient light. So I would say the shelf life of the water is going to be dependent on the temperature that it's stored at. And if it's stored like in direct sunlight, it will degrade. So you could store it for, let's say, at least 5 hours under the right conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned the two-phase filtration and processing system. This really is unlike anything else that's out there on the market. Is it that two-stage process that makes it so unique to anything out there?
Well, it's the combination of things. First of all, we have patents, multiple patents now, as you know, on the water machine, with more patents that are following. But I would say the novel part of this is that we're creating new structure for water, but it's not structured water in the usual sense. When we think of structured water, it's adding different minerals to the water, often in small amounts, to change the crystal patterns within the water. Water is essentially a liquid crystal. This is something entirely different. Essentially, what we're doing is storing photons of light in the bonds between hydrogen and oxygen in the water, so that as the water is metabolized, those photons of light are released. And that's done through a proprietary process that I discovered. And it all has to do with the wavelengths of light that we're using and the way that light processes the water. So that's really what makes it special. And the filtration is really just a practical matter. I suppose we could have asked people to put in clean water into the machine, but that didn't really seem quite right. We wanted to have very high-end filtration in the water, so people are getting clean water.
Well, I'm really excited for the product to come out. I'm also excited that there's a unit, I've heard, coming to the corporate office, and I can't wait to start using it on a more regular basis and really understanding the benefits as we get all the marketing and everything ready for launch. I don't want to put you on the spot at all. I'm seeing maybe 50 questions on timing. So what's your sense? We know that it's going to be 2025. Directionally, within that year, where do you see this launching once all the production's complete, all the tests and clinicals are complete, and then the marketing campaign and launch campaign is done?
So general timeline is that around February, and we're going to announce this at Vision, we will announce that the top 30 leaders in the United States are going to be awarded free machines. That's an awful nice, expensive gift, but that's the thing we want to give to our leaders as a way of saying thank you for everything that you're doing to make LifeWave #1. Then they'll receive those machines around February. We'll begin to run an incentive so that any of our brand partners can get access to one of these machines. We're working on what that looks like, but then in and around April, we'll have the machines in inventory in the United States and begin to ship them. Around April, we'll run an incentive in the international markets, and we'll give leaders in international markets the opportunity to win a free machine. We're also going to have water machines at our offices internationally. So a brand partner or customer will be able to eventually go into Tokyo, Taiwan, South Korea, and they'll be able to try this water before it becomes available there. And then in 26, we don't, of course, have a firm date because it depends on regulatory, but our plan is in 2026 to have this available outside the United States in our key markets. So of course that would be throughout Europe and Asia. So I would say those are pretty good ballpark dates to work with.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I know we're all so excited and so eager to be able to use it and get it and have the benefits on a regular basis. One or two more questions on the filter, if that's okay, or the water machine as relates to the filter. How often does a filter need to be replaced? Are there other components that need to be replaced periodically? Can you share some of the kind of the mechanics on that?
One of the components I'm going to save to Vision. I've just filed for a patent on this, and it looks like we're going to get a patent, but I'll probably save that for Vision. But on the filter, the primary filter with daily usage would be changed about once every 6 months. So there's a panel that the consumer would open on the right side of the machine. Very easy to access. It's one button that you press, the panel opens up, and the primary filter is in there, and once every 6 months. The second stage filter, because the primary filter does most of the heavy lifting, with daily use, the secondary filter is changed about once every 3 years. But let's say once a year, but really more realistically, it's about once every 3 years. The machine is also designed to be upgraded. And so there's going to be a cartridge that comes with these machines, and we'll be talking about that later on as far as what the purpose of that cartridge is. But suffice it to say, we built in the ability in these machines to have things that we add to the water. But we'll talk about that at the Vision conference.